Have you ever been afraid, alarmed, or filled with dread? Have you ever lived in daily terror for your life? That was what life was like for a Jew during the Nazi era. Driven by a racist ideology that viewed Jews as parasitic vermin worthy only of eradication, the Nazis implemented genocide on an unprecedented scale. All of Europe's Jews were slated for destruction. The sick and the healthy, the rich and the poor, the religiously orthodox and converts to Christianity, the aged and the young, even infants. Thousands of Jewish children survived this brutal carnage, however, many because they were hidden. With identities disguised and often physically concealed from the outside world, these youngsters faced constant fear, dilemmas, and danger. Theirs was a life in shadows, where a careless remark, a denunciation, or the murmurings of an inquisitive neighbors could lead to discovery and death. The righteous among the nations, honored by Yad Vashem, is Israel's official memorial to the victims of the Holocaust. It is dedicated to preserving the memory of the dead, honoring Jews who fought against their Nazi oppressors and Gentiles who selflessly aided Jews in need. Rescue took many forms, and the righteous came from different nations, religions, and walks of life. What they had in common was that they protected their Jewish neighbors at a time when hostility and indifference prevailed.
Confronted with the persecution and murder of Europe's Jews during the Holocaust, individuals had a choice: whether or not to intervene. Many opted not to act, as Jews were systematically targeted, robbed of their property, crowded into ghettos, separated from their families, and deported to forced labor camps and killing centers. But a small number of individuals in every European country and from all religious, ethnic, and political backgrounds risked their lives to help Jews. Rescue efforts ranged from the isolated actions of individuals to organized networks, large and small. Some stories of rescue are well known, such as that of German factory owner Oskar Schindler, who protected more than 1,000 Jewish workers employed at his plant from deportation to Auschwitz. But many stories of rescue are less familiar. Stories of ordinary people acting in extraordinary ways in the face of great danger.
In Poland, to assist the Jew was very risky. The Poles who were guilty of assisting Jews were often, not always, but on many occasions, killed or sent to a camp. In some villages, their house was burned down. I know, for example, of a man who did assist my family, a Mr. Kubinski, whose farm was burned and his family was killed.
Whether they saved 1,000 people or a single life, those who rescued Jews during the Holocaust demonstrated the possibility of individual choice, even in extreme circumstances. As we remember the victims of the Holocaust, we honor the rescuers whose actions saved lives. Some Jews survived because non-Jews risked hiding them. Sarah Kupfer was 10 years old when she, her 2-year-old sister, and their mother went into hiding in Poland for 18 months in the home of Mrs. Orlewska.
She was a beautiful woman, tall, with swept-up hair, with a beautiful smile, deeply religious. With a heart of gold, obviously. The woman went to Mass every single day. And if she sold a piece of jewelry for us, what my mother gave her, and my mother would say, take a little money from this, she would not accept. And Mama would say, take a little money when you go to Mass and give it to the poor. And she would say, there are no poorer people than you. You children have no fresh air. You have no light. You have no freedom. Nobody is poorer than you. She wouldn't take a penny. Never. She never took a penny. She did it out of the goodness of her heart.
A Swedish diplomat in Hungary, Raoul Wallenberg worked with others to protect Jews in Budapest. Agnes Adachi was 26 when she assisted in this rescue effort.
Budapest is 2 cities, and in the middle is the so-called blue Danube. For me, it is the red Danube, but that's what it was. And they took people down there, the Hungarian Nazis, and they roped 3 people together, and they shot the middle one, so they all fell in. And if they saw a movement, they shot again, so that be sure. But many people by themselves somehow got out. But it was a terribly cold winter, as I said, and the Danube was frozen with big slabs of ice. So Raoul came home the 3rd night, and there was no moonlight, no stars, just cold and dark. And he turned to us the first time. Usually he only talked to the men and the Red Cross. And how many of you can swim? I have a big mouth. I put up my hand. I said, best swimmer in school. He says, let's go. And we went down on the other side. The Hungarians didn't even hear us coming because they were so busy roping and shooting. And we stood on the left, way over. We had doctors and nurses in the cars, and then we had people outside to pull us out. 4 of us, 3 men and me. We jumped. And thanks to the icicles, the ropes hang on to it, and we saved people out.
Some Jewish parents saved their children by placing them with non-Jewish families. In Holland, Helen Waterford and her husband sent their 4-year-old daughter away in 1940.
We decided not to kiss her anymore, not to have her too close physically. Both of us did that. And it has helped her. Because when we had the times that she had to leave, and we told her she was an outgoing child, she would go and visit a couple, and they have no children, and they would so much like to see her. And she always liked to visit people. So when the other people came, they took her. When they came on a Sunday afternoon, and we didn't know their name, we didn't know where they lived, and she saw them, and we told us, yes, those are the friends who would like you to see where they are living. See, they have no children. And she went with, we went with her to the streetcar, and we said goodbye, like that. No kissing, nothing.
In 1939, nearly 10,000 children were sent abroad from Germany and Austria on what were called Kindertransports. Norbert Wollheim assisted in sending German Jewish children to France, Sweden, and mainly England.
Most of the children were in some kind of a mood of expectation. And the parents tried to control their emotions, to show that they are courageous in order to make it not difficult for the children. None of us, nobody of us, could foresee, even at this moment, that for most of the children and most of the parents, it would be the last goodbye. That a year and a half later or so, from over the same railways, where the train left to take the children to a new country and to freedom and liberty, the trains would roll towards the east and take the parents to the human slaughterhouses in Auschwitz and other places.
Denmark had one of the highest Jewish survival rates of any European country, thanks to a remarkable mass rescue effort. Preben Munch-Nielsen was one of many ordinary Danish citizens who helped over 7,000 Jews escape by boat to nearby neutral Sweden.
The first night, I remember, had two trips to Sweden, and I think they got 10 to 12 passengers every time. And then later on, we had, in October, 700 Jews, and totally I know that this boat brought about 1,400 people from Denmark to Sweden. There's no question of why or why not. You just did. You couldn't let people in need down. You can't turn them back to people who need your help. There must be some sort of decency in a man's life, and that wouldn't have been decent to turn their back to people in need.
For the longest time, I didn't speak about all this because I didn't think that my story was that important compared to all the other horror stories that I have heard from other people. But I feel it's very important to know that people risk their lives. They risk the lives of their families, of everything. They truly believed that they had to help.
You never thought of being afraid because that was the strength. That was the most wonderful feeling, that you can do something. You have to go on teaching our children to be that strong and that caring, and that their eyes should be open, what they can do for others.
This is Master Sergeant Roddy W. Edmonds, an American soldier. When a German SS officer ordered American prisoner of war Sergeant Roddy Edmonds to identify Jewish prisoners of war for transport to a death camp, Edmonds replied, "We are all Jews." Even upon threat of death with a gun to his head, Sergeant Edmonds refused. This is Safka Skipwith, Russian-born English citizen who saved countless Jews and children from the death camps by obtaining false documents for them. Joop Westerveld from Holland was a Dutch educator and sworn pacifist who created a clandestine network to help Jewish youth, members of a Zionist pioneering group, avoid detection. He then accompanied them through occupied Belgium and France to the Spanish border. He was eventually apprehended and executed by the Germans. This is Jeannie de Man from Belgium. Jeannie was the teacher who saved countless children by placing them in homes across Belgium. Damon also developed a network of Jewish women placed as maids in Belgian households. Damon took them to their future employers and provided them with false identity papers and ration cards. This is Jeannie de Man with some of the students whose lives she saved. This is Elizabeth Abeg, a teacher in Germany. Elizabeth and her sister Julie gave a total of 12 people lodgings in their apartment they shared in Berlin Tempelhof. Abeg found others to support numerous other people suffering persecution. Her assistance was never discovered by the Gestapo. This is Benjamin Blankenstein, who was a teacher from the Netherlands. After a raid on his home revealed a Jewish family in hiding, Benjamin was arrested at his school. He was taken to prison. On September 5, 1944, with the Allied forces approaching, Blankenstein was moved to camps in Germany and perished in Bergen-Belsen on February 24, 1945. Brass bricks, known as soperstein or stumbling stones, are placed in front of a past home or workplace of victims throughout Europe. The stones commemorate the millions of victims of the Nazi regime. Leopold Poldek Socha was a Polish sewage inspector in the city of Loire. During World War II, Socha used his knowledge of the city's sewage system to shelter a group of 20 Jews from Nazi persecution and their supporters of different nationalities. He fed and sheltered them. He died in 1946, saving his daughter from a Soviet truck that was speeding. This is Władysław Kowalski, a retired colonel in the Polish army and the Warsaw representative of the Dutch Philips concern. He used his freedom of movement to help some 50 Jews in the Warsaw region, moving them to places of refuge with friends, and remained with his charges in an underground bunker until the arrival of the Russians in January 1945. Marion Pritchard was a Dutch-American social worker and psychoanalyst who distinguished herself as a savior of Jews in the Netherlands during the Second World War. Pritchard helped save approximately 150 Dutch Jews, most of them children, throughout the German occupation of the Netherlands.
And they did it one little tiny step but after another little tiny step as they enforced all their regulations to stop Jews from mixing with Gentiles. It did look different. The benches in the park had signs on them that said no Jews. Stores had signs that said no Jews. Trolley cars. So you didn't see people going in and out of the synagogues anymore because, the people weren't there anymore.
Had there been any Nazi propaganda at all before?
Oh, when?
Up until this time, or
the minute they walked in, they began with the propaganda. I think that's what I said a little while ago. They started this education propaganda campaign to set the Dutch against the Jews. They made all the movie theaters show a movie called De Eeuwige Jood, the Eternal Jew. And one of our Jewish sociology teachers told us to go and see it. And we went, the Jews could still go to the movies at that point, and we looked at the movie and we sat and laughed and made smart remarks all the way through and disagreed with everything they said. But when we came out, a Gentile friend said to me, I wish I hadn't seen that movie because now for the first time I have a feeling of them and us. I now look at, and pointed to the Jewish kids that were walking, a few steps away, said it's them, and they're not us, and I don't like it. I'm going to help them as much as I can, but it shows that even with people who want to resist propaganda, it still has an effect.
This is Chiune Sugihara, who was a Japanese diplomat who served as vice consul for the Japanese Empire in Kaunas, Lithuania. During the Second World War, Sugihara helped about 6,000 Jews flee Europe by issuing transit visas to them so that they could travel through Japanese territory, risking his job and the lives of his family. Irene was an employee of the Warsaw Health Department and a member of the Polish underground organization for aid to Jews. She helped find places of hiding for scores of Jewish children snatched from the burning Warsaw ghetto. Johann von Hulst saved an estimated 600 children and was named Righteous Among the Nations in 1972 by Yad Vashem, Israel's memorial to the victims of the Holocaust. He also helped hide other Jews during the war, but until the end of his life, he regretted not doing more.
As each year, Israel will remember and honor 6 million Jews who perished from the hands of the Nazis in World War II. But there is another side to the story of the Holocaust, that of courageous men and women who risked their lives and those of their families just to save Jewish people. Most rescuers were ordinary people. Some acted out of political, ideological, or religious convictions, while others were merely human beings who cared about the people around them, regardless of their race. And whether they saved one person, one family, or hundreds of Jewish people, Israel has made a decision to recognize and honor them, giving them a special title of the righteous among the nations. So far, Yad Vashem recognized 25,271 righteous from 44 countries and nationalities. The main forms of help were hiding Jews in their homes or on their property, smuggling or assisting Jews to escape, and rescuing Jewish children by adopting them into their families. Israelis decided to plant a special garden to commemorate these wonderful people and to preserve their stories and memory throughout generations. The Garden of the Righteous initiative was launched in 1992 by Rabbi Jeffrey Wahlberg. Around the site, trees are planted with plaques next to each one with the names of the rescuers and the countries of origin. The Avenue of the Righteous Among the Nations alone has around 2,000 trees. When someone is recognized as a righteous, they are honored in 3 special ways. An ambassador in the recipient's country usually presents the title of righteous Gentile. Then in Jerusalem, they receive a special medal and diploma in their name. Finally, a tree is planted in their honor in the Garden of the Righteous. As we remember the victims slaughtered during the Holocaust, let us also remember those who did not count themselves better than others and took the opportunity presented to them to save a life.
My paternal grandfather, Isaac Goldsmith, 1879 to 1944. An expert tailor, Isaac emigrated to America in 1904. Acquiring an American passport in the 1920s, he traveled back and forth to Europe, saving countless Jews. Isaac would sew into the lining of refugees' coats whatever wealth, money, or jewels they needed to start over. When the authorities checked the people's coats, there was no indication that anything had been altered with the refugees' garment because of Isaac's expertise. The refugees were allowed to leave.
There are some stories which we're not only an audience to, but may become their participants. Nicky's story came out by accident after this scrapbook surfaced after gathering dust for decades. Once it did, though, it set about a whole chain of incredible events. That's me before I left for England. But until 1988, I had no idea who had rescued me from all but certain death. It was this old man who had saved my life and that of hundreds of others in the Second World War. Yet for 50 years, we knew nothing about him.
4 children. This is his scrapbook. There are all kinds of fascinating pictures in it. Perhaps you can see, this is a picture of Nicholas Winton himself with one of the children he rescued. If you look at the very back of this scrapbook, fascinating things in it, all the letters. But back here is the list of all the children. This is Vera Diamant, now Vera Gissing. We did find her name on his list. Vera Gissing is with us here tonight. Hello, Vera. And I should tell you that you are actually sitting next to Nicholas Winton. Hello.
I wore this around my neck, and this is the actual pass that we were given to come to England, and I'm another of the children that you saved.
Can I ask, is there anyone in our audience tonight who owes their life to Nicholas Winton? If so, could you stand up, please?
Everybody has to learn to live with everybody else, regardless of creed or religion.
I never thought what I did 70 years ago was going to have such a big impact as apparently it has. And if it has now got a story which helps people to live for the future, well, that will be an added bonus.